Welcome back to the IBFP. Here's your host, Boxing Nuke.
Welcome back, fight fans. Welcome back. It's always so good to be back. Now let's take a look at this here. Errol Spence Jr. after the Sean Porter and Danny Garcia fight. He had a lot to say about Terence Crawford. He's basically made a lot of strong statements. Let's just dive right into it. The first statement that he said was, "Me and Terence Crawford fight on different sides of the street. He just signed with ESPN. I'm with Showtime and Fox. I don't fight on ESPN. I'm a way better fighter than Terence Crawford." That is a powerful statement. Another statement he said, "I'm not fighting on ESPN. The big fights will get made on Showtime and Fox." And another thing he said here, basically his preferred schedule of fights in order is Mikey Garcia in December or January, and then Porter after that. Basically his thoughts on Terence Crawford and Jose Benavidez. He's basically just made a statement saying, "I got a tape of me beating him in sparring." Those were all interesting comments made by Errol Spence Jr. Then Terence Crawford responded, basically, "LOL at Errol Spence Jr. Yeah, you was drunk last night. Boy, you are in no way, shape, or form the A-side dummy. You talking about who I beat. Everyone you beat, I'll smash. Boy, how many titles in different weight classes have you won?" And I like Lamont, but come on now. The two guys I stopped and punished that didn't even win a round, beat Lamont and Algieri, was a kickboxer. Stop drinking, dude. It's bad for your health. And we can bet $1 million I make more than you after taxes, big money man. So those are both interesting statements. Those are both interesting comments. And let's just dissect it a little bit, because to me, a lot of people keep saying, what's going on, who's fighting who. What's also interesting is Errol Spence Jr. told Keith Thurman, "I'll stop him before the 6th round." It seems to me that Errol Spence Jr. is making a lot of bold statements, feeling himself a lot lately, and basically saying that he's the best. And while it's great to be confident in yourself, while it's great to say that you're the best and believe you're the best, it's another thing to say it, and it's a totally different thing to do it and act on it. A lot of guys out here are fanboys of Spence, and there's nothing wrong with supporting a fighter, thinking that he's good, thinking that he's a great guy, and thinking that he has the potential to beat anybody in the division. That's what boxing's all about. We love the hype, but let's be honest with ourselves. Errol Spence Jr. has not shown us enough to prove that he's a killer in the division and that he can wash Terence Crawford. That's just bullshit. His resume is too suspect. He's too suspect. His skill set and opponents are suspect. Now let's take a look at this. He calls out Terence Crawford's resume, and he makes a lot of comments about different things. And what I don't understand is, even though he talks about Terence Crawford's resume, and for example, Julius Indongo, where he's basically saying Regis Prograis knocked him out in less time than it took Crawford. You also got to remember, when Terence Crawford fought Julius Indongo, he was coming off a huge victory where he had to go to another country and win that belt. And when he fought Terence Crawford, he was undefeated world champion. It's one thing to take on the guy after you've already seen him been beat, after you've already seen someone else expose their flaws, but it's completely different to fight a guy not knowing what his weaknesses are, walking into a fight blind, and an undefeated world champion who's just proven he can go to another country and win a belt. That's two totally different things. Then he beat Jeff Horn. You say Jeff Horn's, could be beat by all these guys. Jeff Horn would stop Chris Algieri. You forget that Chris Algieri was knocked down 7 times in one fight against Manny Pacquiao. A Manny Pacquiao that was past his prime. What the fuck are you talking about? Errol Spence is speaking out of his ass. So, Jeff Horn, the undefeated world champion, still beat Manny Pacquiao. And a lot of people say, well, he did and he didn't. Whether you believe he did or he didn't, it was a close fight, and he roughed up Pacquiao. Pacquiao was pretty messed up after that fight. Didn't look like a normal Pacquiao fight. Made Pacquiao look old. Made Pacquiao look terrible. Jeff Horn came. Terence Crawford pretty much dominated that entire fight. I didn't see a round in which Jeff Horn won. And he got stopped. He was wobbled prior to the stoppage in prior rounds. Terence Crawford did what he wanted, how he wanted, and at his own will and his own pace. So now for Errol Spence Jr. to say, to try to speak about Terence Crawford's resume, I just find that hilarious, because if you look at Errol Spence Jr.'s resume, all I have is just one name, and that pretty much summarizes his entire resume. Carlos Ocampo. Carlos Ocampo. You fought a bum in Carlos Ocampo, and you got the nerve to talk about Jeff Horn, who's a world champion, who's beaten a legend. And even if you felt he didn't beat him, he took him the distance and gave him hell. He won multiple rounds against Manny Pacquiao. Whether you like him or not, whether you thought he won or lost a fight by a round or two, you can always debate that. But he won rounds on Manny Pacquiao, clear rounds where he really fucked him up. But then on the flip side, he won no rounds against Terence Crawford. Not one. And got stopped. He was not able to impose his will or anything in that fight. Carlos Ocampo has done absolutely nothing in his career. Fought Errol Spence Jr., in which was just a highlight profile fight, and got stopped in the first round, because you don't realize that if you're a fighter who's not a huge power puncher, why are you going to try to outmuscle and outpower a guy known for knockout strength? Errol Spence Jr., you have to give credit where credit is due. He's an elite power puncher. He's very, very strong, and I won't ever take that from him. He has that skill set. But to be completely honest with ourselves and unbiased, the guy has not proven anything. Think about it. We shame and shit on Amir Khan and say, who the fuck is Amir Khan? Glass jaw, he fought a bunch of bums. Two guys that he fought was Samuel Vargas and Phil LaGreco. Same two guys that Errol Spence Jr. fought. Then Errol Spence Jr. fights Carlos Ocampo. Come on. Chris Algieri. He fought Chris Algieri. And when he fought Chris Algieri, let's just be honest with you. When he fought Chris Algieri, this is after Chris Algieri has already been knocked down 7 times in one fight against Manny Pacquiao over 12 rounds. Then he lost another fight against Amir Khan over 12 rounds. And then he comes back, beats an Eric Bone, and then Errol Spence takes him. That was an easy tune-up fight. Get the fuck out of here with that shit talking about Chris Algieri. He's fought nothing but bums and washed fighters. Then he brings in Lamont Peterson into the whole mix. And I find the Lamont Peterson into the mix a very interesting thing. Lamont Peterson is a fighter who's already been knocked out. He was knocked out in the 3rd round against a Lucas Matisse in 2013. Then he was beaten by Danny Garcia in a majority decision over 12 rounds. And then Errol Spence fights him this year. What the fuck is that? You're fighting guys who's already been dominated and knocked out by 2 different guys that you talk shit about. Get the fuck out of here. Lamont Peterson clearly is past his best, and at 147 pounds, he's not a good fighter. 140 was his prime and best weight. Right now, he has too many miles on him. Does not look like the same Lamont Peterson, and even if he did, he's still at the very best a B-level fighter. And there's nothing impressive about that victory. Nothing. He was not a world champion when you beat him. Wasn't undefeated and had already been stopped. So let's take a look. Chris Algieri had already had the hell beat out of him. Kell Brook was coming off a knockout loss. Carlos Ocampo accomplished nothing. And Lamont Peterson had already been knocked out. Phil LaGreco and Samuel Vargas, we both know they're cherries. Chris Van Heerding, cherry. Alejandro Barrera, cherry. And Leonard Bundu had already taken the defeat at the hands of Keith Thurman. Cherry. Name one fighter in the last 10 fights that Errol Spence has fought that who wasn't coming off a loss, who hadn't already lost. Can you name one? And the only fighter that you can name is Carlos Ocampo. And who the fuck is Carlos Ocampo? Carlos Ocampo wasn't even fighting ranked competition in the United States. He was fighting in Mexico. So yeah, Errol Spence talks a lot of shit, but let's keep these things in perspective about who the fuck he is. Now let's get on the other side. Errol Spence, is he ducking Terence Crawford? Abso-fucking-lutely. Look at the comments this guy's made. He said, we're on different sides of the street. He just signed with ESPN. I'm with Showtime and Fox. I don't fight on ESPN. I'm a way better fighter than him. I'm not going to fight on ESPN. The big fights will get made on Showtime and Fox. Clearly, he's stating that he's not going to fight on ESPN against Terence Crawford. He's not willing to negotiate. He's not interested in that. He's only interested in fighting on his platform with Showtime, even though he doesn't technically have a promoter and he can fight anywhere he wants. It's his choice. So even for a high amount of money, he wouldn't, because he's not even open to it. So that clearly tells me that you're scared to death of Terence Crawford's skill set. You know he's legitimate. You know your resume is full of guys who's already been beaten and washed. You know that you're not the fighter that you portray yourself to be. The funny thing about all this is you have all these Errol Spence fanboys who, instead of really taking a good look at Errol Spence's resume like I just did, I digested and went through his resume, broke it down, and showed you how pretty much everybody on his resume was trash. And if they're not trash, these are guys coming off of losses. These are guys who've been knocked out. These are guys who are past their prime, too many miles, or guys that are broken fighters and never the same. A lot of people come to me and talk to me about the Kell Brook thing. I get that at least 3 or 4 times a week when I say, Kell Brook was the best name on Spence's resume, but he was a broken fighter. The first response is he broke his eye socket. Let's just clear this up again. I've already cleared it up, but I'll clear it up again, especially because some people just don't seem to get it. Kell Brook fought Triple G. Triple G broke his eye socket. When Triple G broke his eye socket in that fight, Triple G left tons of small facial fractures all over Kell Brook's face. When he did this, Kell Brook was susceptible to another fracture of his other eye at that point, because that one eye that was completely fractured was repaired. The other eye wasn't completely fractured, but it was on the verge. Once he got into the fight, Kell Brook dominated the first 6 rounds, gassed out, got his eye socket broke, and the fight was over. Simple as that. So you're fighting a guy coming off a knockout loss who's been weight drained because he's came down 2 divisions. So knockout loss, weight drain, injury, no tune-up, and you're bragging that your guy stopped him with a broken eye socket. Learn the facts. Learn the facts, because you're just talking bullshit. Learn the facts. A broken eye socket. Name one other fighter that Errol Spence broke their eye socket. Don't worry, I'll wait. Thought so. You can't, because he's broke no one else's eye socket. He doesn't show elite power when he's going to the head and head hunting. He shows elite power only when body punching. That's the only time he shows elite power. But does he have elite feet? No. Does he have elite head movement? No. Elite defense? No. And the reason why we know these things is because we've seen him get hit over and over and over again by less and subpar opponents. But another thing is, who has Errol Spence been in there that's been ready and elite? And the best fighter he's been in with, one that was already damaged and broken, was giving him hell early in that fight. Now he comes out here telling Terence Crawford he won't fight over here, basically trying to portray himself as an A-side. How in the fuck are you an A-side when you fought nobodies? How are you an A-side? Explain that to me. Now he thinks that it's going to be an easy road to go through Shawn Porter and Mikey Garcia. He thinks that he's just going to wash out Mikey Garcia and he's going to wash out Shawn Porter. He's going to build a huge name, become this huge A-side, and show the world he's not to be fucked with. Here's the problem with that analysis, is that he's going to have to fight Mikey Garcia first. And what happens when you run into Mikey Garcia, a 4-division world champion? Why else would a world champion from 135 pounds call out the supposed baddest motherfucker at 147 pounds? Why? Because he sees the flaws that we all see. If you're not a fanboy, you can look through the bullshit and see these flaws. Don't be a fanboy. Open your eyes and be honest with yourself. This guy has a lot of fucking flaws. A lot. A guy from 135 pounds wants to fight you. Get the fuck out of here. And that's because you have too many flaws. Head movement being the primary one. He does not move his head enough. He was rocked multiple times in that Kell Brook fight. And I believe if he goes against the right fighter with enough power, he could get stopped. I honestly, at this point, I have not seen enough from Errol Spence to determine that he is the truth. I have not, because I have not seen him in there with an opponent of that caliber. And when I've seen him in with his best opponent, Kell Brook, who was a broken fighter, coming off a knockout, coming down 2 divisions in weight, possibly drained, and you break an eye socket that was already fractured, and you're bragging like you destroyed him, get the fuck out of here. And he rocked you multiple times. It's probably the most obvious thing that Errol Spence Jr. is ducking Terence Crawford, not interested in that fight. He wants to go with the perceived easier fights on Showtime, try to become a massive star, and then possibly, after a few years of building up his name and his brand, maybe try to age out Terence Crawford and pummel him with size, if he fights him. So think about it like this. If Anthony Joshua came out and made these same statements against Deontay Wilder, you would say he's been ducking Wilder, when it's clear that Wilder was offered a contract and refused to sign. This is what happens when you have fanboys and casuals perpetrating themselves as boxing media, as real boxing fans, as people who enjoy and love the sport for what it is. That's all bullshit. Errol Spence is clearly ducking Terence Crawford. And honestly, if Terence Crawford fought Errol Spence Jr. with his skill set, he would probably tear Errol Spence a new asshole. Errol Spence is not ready for that level of competition because he's never fought that level of competition. I think when he fights Mikey Garcia, I think Mikey Garcia is going to give him hell for the entire fight. I don't think Mikey Garcia gets stopped. I think Mikey Garcia takes that fight to a decision, and may the best man win. I think Mikey Garcia is going to surprise and may even drop Errol Spence in that fight. Not saying Errol Spence can't win. It's very possible Errol Spence could beat Mikey Garcia. He could catch him, but Mikey's not going to sit there and absorb tons of body shots. He's a 4-division world champion. He knows what to do. He's been preparing for this moment. I think that Mikey Garcia can beat Errol Spence Jr. I think Sean Porter could beat Errol Spence Jr. I think Errol Spence Jr. has shown us nothing to assume that he's an elite fighter completely, because to be an elite fighter, you have to check off multiple boxes: defense, offense, speed, power. His only box that he's checked is power, and he's been fighting a lot of bums, looking great. That is not the way to do it. Every win that he has on his resume has an asterisk by it. Be honest with yourself. Don't be a fanboy. He's not who you think he is. He is a fraud. If he fights Terence Crawford, Mikey Garcia, Sean Porter, he will be exposed. He will be exposed. These are all very top-level fighters, all very good fighters, and elite-level fighters. And I can't wait till these fights are made so we can start the exposure of Errol Spence Jr. Now, I will say that Errol Spence Jr. is not a horrible fighter, not a bad fighter. And if he starts knocking these guys down one by one, he beats all 3 of these guys in that order. He takes a Terence Crawford fight right away. He's not ducking it. Then I say, you know what? Absolutely, he's the truth. He's done none of those things. His entire resume shows that that's not the type of guy he is, and those are not the fights he's going to take. Let's be honest with ourselves. This is not that guy. He is not that guy. He is not Floyd Mayweather. He does not have those defensive capabilities when he gets in trouble. He can get out of the way. He can use movement, head movement. He has no head movement. He's been rocked. He will face one of these elite fighters and will fall at some point. Mark my words. Once again, it's the IBFP. Please subscribe.